like, and then what would the whole framework look like? So in March 21st, we gave a party here and explained what the framework requirements were. And one of the people who saw that, and we videoed it, that Rogero did, and we put it up on YouTube. And this guy, Hugh O'Donnell, looked at all 70 minutes of it. And he turned out to be a professor of painting at Boston University, in the School of Visual Arts, in the College of Fine Arts at BU. And we've had several meetings since the time. And he has become the principal investigator to build the digital prototype. And after we get to take, and I was faulted by my family that, Charlie, or Dad, you don't explain it very clearly. But it took a dozen hours with this expert in visual arts. And at the end of the time, he said, my head is spinning. I can't take it anymore. But we're going to show you tonight what we came with. There's also, books are coming out everywhere. It's called The Well-Tempered City, showing that the city is a metaphor for everything, for the universe, for the mind, and it's a sensational book. The books coming out all over the place. So let's look at the conceptual framework. Aristotle thought it was a heart. Christianity thinks it's the soul. Freud thought it was the psyche. And your iPhone thinks it's an alphanumeric symbolic thing, and that you only can think in terms of alphabet, and they give you endless lists, and you can search cancer and find 70 million, or is it 700, I can't keep track, hits that are useless to you. The framework of that I'm using is looking at the whole behavior of the whole brain, mind, and body as my conceptual framework. The orientation of the whole brain, mind, and body can be visioned here. This character who's walking down the street, and his brain is up in his head, and his mind is sort of the behavior of his brain, and the body you can see there. And so just to orient you how I'm positioning this 3D mind, from left to right, I see it's not I have a little thing, I'm showing you where it goes, but left to right, that way, that I'm treating that as the x-axis, the horizontal axis. And up and down, from up to the sky and down beneath the earth is the y-axis. That's the way they do it in calculus. And then the z-axis is from the back to the front. So as we look at this metaphor of the mind, we're looking at the back of the brain. Back when I was working with, as a research assistant at B.F. Skinner and starting the whole brain, starting the basic systems with colleagues of Allison's father, the black box was the metaphor for understanding the structure of computers and of the behavior. For computers, Norbert Wiener at MIT talked about input and output, a kind of a linear look at it. You didn't know what was inside the box. And the same with the behaviors. They looked at stimulus, response, and reinforcement. Whoops, I'll go back. This teaching machine that I built when I was teaching artillery gunnery at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, it's called the M1 teaching machine. was based on this machine, which happens to be looking like a cube. Who knew the foreshadowing it would give to me? It was this machine that convinced B.F. Skinner to make me an offer to come work for him as a research assistant and to demonstrate how his operant conditioning could be used to teach creativity. Over here is, as you learn more about the black box, the metaphor changed from a black box to a white box because you'd suddenly see in it. And as technology moved along, the white box was the next metaphor. And I want you to think, as you see how this might apply to you, the different kinds of metaphors, from the brain, mind, and body, to the stick figure, to the black box, to the white box, how you can transform your own view of your own thinking using these 7 steps. With a white box, if you orient it from the back to the front, from left to right, that's the right. That's where I include thinking preferences. And up and down is more abstract thinking. Allison's a generalist. She likes to think at high level. Some other people are specialists. Turns out you make all your money being a specialist. At least you used to. That if you're an ophthalmologist that works only on the retina, that only works on certain kind of thing, you can make lots of money. But if you're a generalist, doesn't get much pay. The functional framework came to me when I met this guy, Ned Herman, who was absolutely central to at age 50, to be getting a better understanding of who the hell I was. I'd been to a lot of group therapy. I'd studied every kind of psychology, from human development psychology, educational psychology, to experimental psychology, to primal screen therapy. And I found that this model, which is sort of which Ned Herman built around 1980, could take a slice from the left side of the brain over to the right side, in the red and the yellow, and from the limbic system up to the cerebral system. And I found that there were lots of ways that breakthrough that Ned Herman did, that's the model I used from 1981 to 1986. And the question was, well, where the hell does creativity fit? And I could see humanity sort of left and right and up and down, and I tried to map the creative process from the plan, the goals, the strategy, the structure, the implementation. And the big breakthrough for me was figuring out where creativity fit in this whole brain model. One of the people that I met in the 90s was G. Gordon Bell of Digital Equipment, who invented the PDP-8, the first mini computer. And he had taken courses with one of my associates, Chuck McVinney, and used that model to map out the different issues that you'd focus on in running a company. And he mapped it against the clock so that the strategic plan was at the top, marketing was at 1 o'clock, sales was at 2 o'clock, the CEO, Chief Entrepreneurial Officer, was at 3 o'clock, and all the way around. And that became, as I began to try to figure out what the model would look like, became a template that I began applying to other dimensions, particularly my own health. What would be the equivalent pattern recognition corresponding issue for your personal health as opposed to your corporate health? And I found that I could map the personal health competencies. The doctors say the Lord, by eating and drinking. Try eating and drinking, diet, or up here, stretching and strengthening, diet and exercise, and you will, and then take these pills, which if they don't kill you, and if you do your diet and exercise well, you may get a little better. And so I had spent, and I have spent 60 years of my life doing global pharmaceutical sales training. We've built programs in every mode, media, method of instruction. Warren was part of that back in the 70s, but the company is still alive and is getting ready to go to the next lap in my next 18 years, as I'm planning to live to be 100. And then over here, I also found that I could apply it and map it out against this whole brain model, the G. Gordon Bell approach. But it's a two-dimensional framework. It gives you a slice from the back of your head, where you see the right brain on the right side, the left brain, and then map these different issues. In 2012, I gave a workshop at the Harvard Faculty Club between stays in the hospital. And it was on orchestrating a presidential vision, and we looked at Obama, we looked at Romney, and we looked at the other candidates. And we mapped out the creative process against these dozen issues which were derived from Gordon Bell's map. And these give if the whole world had these issues as a way of understanding what the policy positions were and the departmental heads were doing, they could figure out, well, what's the number one priority? And they'd have a way of visualizing it. Moving along here. In terms of that two-dimensional model that was based on a white cube, I found that in each direction I was able to map it in 5 divisions, and that the best way of understanding what those divisions were was the Rubik's Cube. And that gave me a way of envisioning a year ago how to begin mapping on April 16th. For sure, capture that if you can. April 16th, how I might allocate that. It's taken several iterations to come up with the orientation that actually maps the brain. That one doesn't quite do it, but it was a step over. And then I realized that within the cube, you could then begin seeing where all the rooms were. Like here, there are, with a little digit, you can see that there are 125 rooms in each of these 5 by 5 by 5 Rubik's Cubes, and that if you use the memory palace, each one of those rooms could be decorated and landscaped to things that you were already familiar with, that you could then associate things. Association is the method that every memory athlete uses, and they use memory palaces. And I believe that now we can take an abstraction of a simple, systematic platform that will that we can populate with your own memories and your own things that you already know by integrating a mixed reality of the real world and this artificial world, so that you memorize the structure on the one hand and you memorize reality on the other, and then digitally it's pulled together and you can use it as a map. I found that the city is just one structure. Here was the idea of a Waffle House, each of these waffles has 4